Vietnam War did not begin in the jungles of Southeast Asia. It began in the minds of men who saw the world as a great chessboard. This was the Cold War, a stark and unyielding struggle for global supremacy, born from the ashes of World War II. On one side, the United States and its allies, champions of democracy and free market capitalism. On the other, the Soviet Union and its communist bloc, an ideology promising a workers' revolution. This was not a war of massive armies on open fields, but a conflict waged through proxy wars, espionage, economic pressure, and a terrifying nuclear arms race. To understand the immense pressure that drove American policy in Vietnam, one must grasp the power of a single, simple metaphor: the domino. The Domino Theory, articulated most forcefully by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1954, became the intellectual bedrock for U.S. intervention. Eisenhower explained that if you have a row of dominoes set up, you knock over the first one, and what will happen to the last one is the certainty that it will go over very quickly. This idea captured the prevailing fear with chilling clarity. Vietnam was seen as the first domino. If it were to fall to communism, the theory held, then its neighbors, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Burma, and perhaps even farther afield, would inevitably topple in a rapid and disastrous sequence. This theory was more than just a political talking point. It was a deeply held belief that shaped a generation of foreign policy thinkers. It transformed a complex regional conflict with deep roots in nationalism and anti-colonialism into a straightforward test of American strength. America's journey into the Vietnam quagmire was not a sudden leap, but a slow, incremental slide. The initial involvement was modest, beginning after the French defeat at Dien Bien Phu in 1954 and the subsequent division of Vietnam Communist North and an anti-communist South. The United States, under President Eisenhower, refused to sign the Geneva Accords that called for reunification elections, fearing Ho Chi Minh would win. Instead, America threw its support behind the fledgling government of South Vietnam, led by Ngo Dinh Diem. The first steps involved sending not soldiers, but money, equipment, and a few hundred military advisors to help train Diem's army and build a state that could stand as a bulwark against the North. Under President John F. Kennedy, who took office in 1961, when the first U.S. combat battalions waded ashore at Da Nang in March 1965, they brought with them the might of a superpower. The American soldier who served in Vietnam was, on average, just 19 years old, often a world away from the geopolitical theories being debated in Washington. He was sent to fight in a country of bewildering landscapes, waterlogged rice paddies of the Mekong Delta, dense triple-canopy jungles of the Central Highlands. He faced a climate that was relentlessly hot and humid, teeming with leeches, snakes, fever-inducing mosquitoes. This was a war without clear front lines, where the threat of a sniper's bullet or a hidden booby trap was constant and nerve-shredding. In this alien and hostile environment, the American GI displayed immense courage and resilience. Soldiers carried heavy packs on long, grueling patrols, humps, searching for an elusive enemy. The United States entered Vietnam with overwhelming technological and material superiority. It possessed an arsenal of B-52 bombers, jet fighters, advanced helicopters, and devastating firepower that no conventional army could withstand. Yet the enemy they faced refused to fight a conventional war. The Viet Cong insurgents in the south and the North Vietnamese Army regulars who infiltrated to support them. They were masters of guerrilla warfare. They struck with deadly speed from ambush, then melted back into the jungle, the villages, or a vast network of underground tunnels that were impervious to bombing. For the American soldier, the greatest challenge was often simply finding the enemy. The battlefield had no front. The farmer toiling in the rice paddy by day could be the guerrilla laying a booby trap by night. Section 6, The War at Home, Television, Protest, and a Nation Torn. Unlike any war before it, Vietnam unfolded nightly in American living rooms. Television journalism brought the brutal battlefield home with immediacy and intimacy. Reporters traveled with military units. Camera crews filmed close-up combat, firefights captured on film, wounded soldiers, devastation of the Vietnamese countryside filmed. Civilians saw the grim face of war, not a sanitized newsreel, not a heroic movie, but a raw, unfiltered, often disturbing daily report. This living room war eroded the gap between battlefield and home front. At first, a majority supported the war, trusting leaders' claims about stopping communism. Patriotism ran high. Soldiers' sacrifices were honored. But the war dragged on with no clear end in sight. Flag-draped coffins began returning to the US in increasing numbers. Section 7. The Tet Offensive, a turning point in perception. On January 30th, 1968, during the Lunar New Year holiday known as Tet, the war in Vietnam exploded with shocking force. In a massive, coordinated surprise attack, some 80,000 North Vietnamese and Viet Cong soldiers struck more than 100 cities and towns across South Vietnam simultaneously. For years, the American public had been told that the enemy was weakening and that there was light at the end of the tunnel. But now, the enemy was inside the walls of the U.S. Embassy in Saigon, battling for control of major cities like Hue and demonstrating a strength and coordination that seemed utterly impossible according to official reports. Militarily, the Tet Offensive was a disastrous defeat for the Communists. Section 8. The Long Goodbye, Vietnamization and Withdrawal. Following the political shock of the Tet Offensive, the United States began the slow and painful process of extricating itself from Vietnam. President Richard Nixon, elected in 1968 on a promise to achieve peace with honor, introduced a new strategy called Vietnamization. The core idea was to gradually withdraw U.S. ground troops while building up the South Vietnamese military, the ARVN, so it could stand on its own against the communist threat. American involvement shifted from direct combat to providing air power equipment financial support. Section 9. The Lasting Echo, Scars, Lessons. Legacy. The fall of Saigon in 1975 brought an end to the Vietnam War, but its echoes still resonate across America and the world. The cost was immense. More than 58,000 Americans lost their lives, over 300,000 were wounded. The psychological toll on the 2.7 million Americans who served was even greater.